Only one episode left, guys, of season 1. Just one episode. And then my pain and suffering will be over. But yeah, on that note, so you guys know it's a Rings of Power stream when I start out the stream like that. Very different mood and or tone from the House of the Dragon streams. But I've bared through 7 episodes of Rings of Power. I feel like I've lost a lot of valuable years off my life. But we're going to be reviewing it. I will say straight up, Jesse commented that this episode was not as bad as the last episode, and I agree to a degree. Not really a lot happened in this episode. It really was kind of a filler but not filler episode. It was really weird, where it felt like it was a resolution. So let's use Game of Thrones for an example. So Game of Thrones, you had the Red Wedding, and then the episode after kind of concludes the season. We get a lot of our characters' reactions to the Red Wedding, and then it kind of concludes. It's kind of how episode 7 felt. It felt like it concluded a lot of plots and was kind of the end of the season. But it isn't. So we still have one more episode left. I'm going to be interested to see. I mean, I say I'm interested, but I'm more or less. I'm waiting to be disappointed with how they go with the story from here, but I don't know. But yeah, so hi Hugo. I'm always one episode behind you. Good thing I don't mind spoilers. Hugo, you could honestly have not watched this episode and then just watched episode 8, and probably nothing would have surprised you. But we're gonna go through it. I have about, I think, 4 to 5 pages worth of notes on each individual scene. So yeah, if this is your first time watching a Rings of Power stream for me, we go through every single scene. I have a lot written down. I have a lot to complain about. This episode broke so many lore things. It actively insults book readers. I don't know if they're trying to alienate the book readers, if they're trying to piss off the hardcore fans, but I genuinely felt pissed off at the end of this episode, just with how stupid and how unearned everything feels. Hugo, we're gonna get to it, but Galadriel basically is talking, right? And she goes, oh yeah, Celeborn is he's either dead or he's missing, because she lost him. But in the context, she's talking about her brother who died. So we're led to believe Celeborn is dead, which, if you guys don't know, Celeborn is Galadriel's husband in the main events of The Lord of the Rings. So you see how that doesn't make any fucking sense. But, you know, it's Rings of Power. There's a reason why in the thumbnail I have the Silmarillion grayed out and kind of an X to it, because the writers of this script or this show do not give a... I should probably not cuss in the first minute and a half of the stream, so they don't care about it. Let's put it that way. Seems they just realized that he was supposed to exist and decided to retcon him into the story. That's exactly what it feels like, Hugo. It feels like they had written up the script, they were 6 episodes in, and they realized, wait a second, isn't Galadriel supposed to be married or something? And they did some really poor job to kind of fill in the gap, which doesn't make any sense. I just bought the Silmarillion again after my original copy was stolen. The show at least inspired me to do that. Fair enough. What I think is interesting is that the Silmarillion only covers a little bit. When you look at the context of how big the book is, the Silmarillion is really only 40 pages, maybe. I think it's not very long. It's a very short portion of it, which is what's really interesting on why they did a Second Age show, because there isn't a ton of information on it. It's the age with the least amount known about it, but I don't know. So let's get through. Let's just start talking about it, right? I have a very long 2-paragraph review at the end of the stream that'll break down my thoughts on the show to this point and how this episode kind of felt, and its ranking. For you guys that have not watched every Rings of Power stream or have, not seen what my ratings have been, I started out with a 1, or sorry, not a 1. I started out in episode 1 with a 6 out of 10. Episode 2 is a 6 out of 10. I thought they were both fine. They were average, whatever. They were just kind of, yeah, they didn't piss me off. Episode 3 got a 5 out of 10. Just again was just descending in quality. Episode 4 had a 4 out of 10. I really hated what they did with Numenor in episode 4. Episode 5 was a 5 out of 10, and then episode 6, so not the last episode that just came out, but the big battle scene episode was a 3 out of 10. So yeah, that is where we're at, and then I will give you guys my ranking, I guess. I gave this episode a 4 out of 10. I thought it was a little better than the first or the last episode because of it wasn't as logically as bad, but it still was just dialogue was terrible for the most part. The going away from lore, which makes no sense. There's no reason to change characters when you have the source material already. And I know they don't have the Silmarillion, they don't have rights to these things, but you have the rights to the appendices. Like, there are certain things that you having the rights to the Lord of the Rings should tell you, oh, Celeborn is a character. Like, I just don't know. It's just so dumb to me. But we're going to get here into scene 1, and I have a major gripe in scene 1 that kind of sets off the entire Numenor Galadriel plot. At this point, it is already clear beyond doubt that the show is not interested in adapting. What I find most weird is that that many fans defend the show and say it is faithful. Yeah, that's what I don't understand. There's so many YouTubers that their whole channels are based around Lord of the Rings lore or these things, and they will try to defend the show. It's like, no. I will not defend this show. I gave it a chance in episode 1 and 2, and I tried to be very neutral and tried to have an open mind. But it is just, this show makes you just feel shitty. Because it's like, for one, you have to be dumb to accept some of the things that they try to present in this show without having a problem with it. Like, you have to, like, clear your mind and just let it happen. And alongside of that, there's so many just plot holes, logical fallacies. There's so many lore inaccuracies that they just are very apparent that don't make any sense. Like, do you think you are better than Tolkien at writing this story? Because you're not. You're not. I don't know. We'll get into it more when I get into later, but it really bothers me. I found it interesting that you gave the lowest rating to the episode that almost everyone considered. So this is what I also thought was interesting, Hugo. Because if you look at it, I think most people think it is the best episode because things happen in the episode. Like, you know, there's a big battle. It's not like, oh, none of this matters. This is really slow. Nothing's really happening. That's what most of the show feels like. It feels like unnecessary filler where nothing's going with the plot. I, for one, don't like episode 6 because logically, when you really watch the episode, the action sucks. The logic of the characters for reasons of the battle, that whole episode happens just to have Mordor happen, which, again, you didn't need. You did not need. Right? Like, it just felt so stupid and forced. And when you look up to when we've had 5 episodes of build up to this episode, where this is what it's building to. If you are going to be this slow of a show and this much of building up to this big event and it is not good, because even the people that have said this is the best episode have said the episode's not good, right? Why would you give the episode that's supposed to be the big payoff a good ranking? It's not good. It's bad. It's terrible. The logic makes no sense in that episode. And that logic is in every episode, but it's very apparent and abundant in episode 6. So many of them must have been paid off. I agree. I genuinely don't understand, Jesse. I don't understand. To be honest, Celeborn is a very boring character who is just a shadow to Galadriel. However, admitting his existence is a step too far if you're supposed to... Agreed. And Hugo, it's okay if you want to do these things, if you are truthful to the viewers and to the fan base. If you had come out and said, we are going to do an adaptation of the Second Age, but it's going to be basically our own story, our own thing, and not saying this is going to be something we strictly are trying to follow. That is something they advertised with this series. You can't say that if you're going to do complete and utter just nonsense. So, yeah. Hi, Matthew. How are you? I thought it was the weakest episode of the season for the potential left in the eruption. I thought the big event or revelation would be in this episode, but there was nothing. Agreed. Some CW level fight scenes. Agreed. In some versions of the Second Age, Galadriel and Celeborn are separated because Celeborn refused to travel through Khazad-dûm because he hated the dwarves so much. I think they reunite after the war, though. I mean, that's fair, but Galadriel's tale is that basically he just fucking left, like, or something to that degree. I just had a very tiring argument with the guy who called himself a fan of the books and who insisted that the show is doing a great job adapting them. I don't know how on any planet he would say they're doing a great job of adapting them. I really wish that Galadriel had married Celebrimbor. He has such more history, personality, and I agreed. I agree with that. I agree. Okay, so let's talk about scene 1. We actually need to get into the review because this is going to be probably a longer stream, but yeah, let's get into it. So scene 1 is Galadriel's basically covered in this ash from the volcano, and there's been an eruption that has basically set the entire village on fire. And my first thought process here is, how is anyone here alive? And it's something that I'm going to talk about a little bit later on with Miriel. So this is a big spoiler, so if you don't want spoilers, yeah. Miriel, I guess, gets smoke inhalation, which makes a lot of sense, where she can't see, she's smelling smoke and stuff, like, it's really affected her. But she's the only one. Like, every single person in here should have that to some degree. Galadriel is straight up, like, in a blanket of ash and smoke, and, like, I just don't... There was no logic to how anyone survives. There's just nothing. There's no explanation as to how they survive. We're supposed to sit here and go, yeah, this makes sense. Yeah, volcanoes are, and even eruptions, they're whatever. Yeah, maybe a couple people die that nobody cares about. Maybe some stuff gets burned, but whatever. Like, it's just, God. And then they did the whole Game of Thrones season 8. They do the whole Game of Thrones season 8. They have this horse come on set in front of Galadriel, and it's just like, brother, is Galadriel Arya now? Like, what's going on? It was such a bad way to start out the episode. It really, like, set me up for how I was going to feel about this episode. I was just like, why? I would have accepted it more if Galadriel just out of nowhere, with no, like, showing up of us to, like, the audience, that Galadriel just had some power and she just withheld the volcano stuff. I would have accepted that way more than I would have accepted whatever the fuck their explanation is for this episode. Yeah. And by the way, so all of these characters are in a very small town, correct? And apparently, they all just get separated. Like, we don't see Arondir and Bronwyn till the very end. Again, they're trying to maybe have this false tension that they die. Nobody cares about their characters anyway. And also, we know they're not dead. So, again, doesn't matter. So Galadriel and Theo somehow get separated from everyone else. I don't know how this happens. I don't know why this happens. Galadriel was in the direct middle of the village. And you can't even say later on that most of the people died, because we see later on that, like, a couple guys got injured and some of them got killed. But a vast bulk majority of the Numenorians were fine. Like, I don't understand how these people got jobs to write this garbage. Okay, so yeah, all right. So Isildur's friend, or his two friends, they're basically trapped, I guess. Isildur, is with Muriel, and they help get his friend out. But then, big reveal: his friend's dead. I don't care. He's barely a character. It's the same thing with Arondir's like little companion guys. Like I don't care, and it's just like, okay, cool. He's one of the 15 dudes that died here because we didn't check the sword last episode. Like, okay, cool. So Isildur then goes into this house with Muriel or something, and there's people trapped in, and then Isildur gets trapped in the house. It's on fire. That has a ton of smoke in it, and the house collapses in on him. So, if this is any logical story, Isildur's dead. I cannot see a world that Isildur is alive. Like, but again, we don't see Isildur after this point, and everybody's like, yeah, he's dead. So we know he's not dead, just based off that reaction. And also, if he dies, I don't know how things even happen, because Isildur is a pretty major character. I don't know if you guys knew that, but I'll read chat here in a second. I'm just on my rant here because the opening scene really sets you up for just utter annoyance, lack of logic. And this whole thing's supposed to give tension. Like, dude, we know Isildur is not dead. We don't care about any of these characters, okay? Now, so the next question is, how is Isildur going to live? Are we going to say he's a superhero now? Is he a magic person now? Is he Gandalf? I don't know. I don't know. I do not understand, because there is no situation where Isildur should be alive. But okay, so that's scene one before we get to the Hardfoots. So before we get on the Hardfoot rant, let's look at chat. I'm doing good. Haven't watched the episode yet, but it's such a mediocre series. I don't care about spoilers. Yeah. Any friends that had started the like watching with me. So if you look at the first stream for episode 1 and 2, I had, I think, 4 people in the stream, and there was other people that I had watched it with. And I am the only person now that is watching the series that I know of. Like I don't know anyone who's watching the series, like in my own personal life. Like, so when I am talking about my ideas, I'm basically the only person I am bouncing ideas off of is you guys, because people in my life do not care about this series. Like, it's just bad. I don't know. But okay, you don't like Aragorn and Arwen. So this is another thing that I think is interesting about the movies. The movies helped build Arwen more as a character. She really doesn't have a character in the books as much. She's just not as prevalent. Very arrogant. Nikki, are you talking about like a certain character? Are you talking about the directors? Sorry, I got back to your comment a little late. So everybody just survived being engulfed by a lava and a thick storm. Yeah, apparently. We're supposed to believe that. That reminded me of GOT Season 5 horse, which is a reference. Yeah, it's just... Yeah, it's just, I don't know. I do like that they flesh out Arwen more, but I really wish we would have seen Glorfindel. Like, he is one of the coolest elves for me, and I wish we would have gotten to see him. We just really don't. How can we care? Who are these people? Exactly, Nikki. That's my exact reaction to kind of the entire thing. Isildur's going to... I am really looking forward to how they have Isildur survive, because I can't wait to tear it apart. Yeah, I wish we got more of that in Return of the King. It would have been cool if Arwen would have traveled with Elrond, fought in the final battles with Aragorn, including... Yeah, that would have been kind of cool. That's fair, Hugo. That's fair. Yeah, that's the whole thing with Eowyn, is that she's very special because she's very different than all other women, really. She is someone that she feels like her main thing is like she feels like kind of caged in, that the world is going to happen and things are going to happen to the people she cares about, and she's not really going to have anything to do. So I think that is kind of a really, that's why Eowyn is one of my favorite characters, because I think you especially look at how early on that writing was. It was really good, like building. She had a really good character development, I feel like. But that is the volcano, Galadriel, Numenor stuff. Yeah. I saw a meme the other day with the Sparta scene and Leonidas is Tolkien and the messenger was Galadriel. This is not the world. This is not my world. Kicks rings of power down the well. That's funny. Oh no, like Hugo, I agree that it made sense to have Arwen be the character that comes and like, saves Frodo or whatever, because it adds more to Aragorn's relationship with her, and we didn't need another character being introduced that wasn't going to be super, prevalent in the story. So yeah, again, I think for the movies it made sense. I just, I really like Glorfindel. I think it'd be cool if we just got like a spin-off of Glorfindel's travels or something. That'd be cool. But let's go on to scene 2 of the Harfoots. So this is what really bothered me. By the way, before we get into more negativity, positively, we have a big bottle of Aquafina today. So guys, stay hydrated. Get yourself some of the best water on the planet. And this is not sponsored at all, but one day. So my big problem with scene 2 is, you know how last episode the stranger did like he was doing the little freezy thing to heal himself, presumably? Well, and then he knocks back Nori, our main hobbit, or Harfoot. Sorry, not hobbit, Harfoot. But, so, and then she was all like, oh, weirded out and stuff like that. Well, we go into the scene, and the stranger's still with them. And there's like nothing like talked about like what happened not last episode. It was episode 5 because the Harfoots weren't in episode 6. So that was a little weird, but fine or whatever. I guess they're just using the stranger because they can't pull the cart. Whatever. They finally make it to the Grove. All right, and it's like, cool, fine. Whatever. Like, this is what we've been like. This is our big payoff. We're in episode 7, and they make it to this grove. Everything's dead. I don't even know. I didn't catch what the reason was for why the grove was dying or whatever. I don't know if it was just shadow magic from Sauron or some volcano thing hit it, or I don't know what the reasoning was. I don't remember. I didn't care to rewind it because I just don't care. But whatever. So yeah, the grove is all like deforestation and all this stuff, and yeah. And so this is my other problem. So we just watched in episode 5 that the stranger, he scared the shit out of Nori, and like it seemed like there was some tension there, like she ran away crying, and now all of a sudden we skip to they want the stranger to help them fix the grove and all this, when literally in episode 5 they were willing to leave behind and take the wheels of these Harfoots, and they were all like saying, oh, he's such a bad dude and all these things, and I'm just like, dude, these Harfoots are legitimately the worst people ever. They don't give a shit about you until they can use you or they see some benefit to you. Like, they're legitimately awful people. Like, they're trying to say that these are like the hobbits of this story, which they are hobbits, but dude, I don't understand. I don't understand if we're supposed to be sympathetic for this Harfoot group or what. I would rather Sauron literally backslap the shit out of everybody on this little adventure around the world or whatever. So the stranger starts talking magic into the tree, and I kid you not, they do the same goddamn plot point from episode 5. They literally, this is what they do. They're like, oh, you see the stranger doing some sort of magic? Let's walk right up next to him and disturb him doing his magic. So some like, I don't know if it was like a child Harfoot or something, starts walking towards him because the tree starts fixing itself. It's like, how stupid do you need to do? Already, this dude sounds like he's doing some evil dark magic stuff, and your idea is, let's walk towards him. So then a tree root falls or something, which again, totally not the stranger or meteor man's fault. And then it almost, falls on them. And everybody's like, oh, you're such a terrible dude. How could you do that? And then they basically banish him. I'm just like, so wait, let me get this straight. In episode 5, when the meteor man like force pushes Nori back, it's fine. But whenever this tree, limb accidentally falls and is almost about to hit a child or something, now he's banished? This story is written by someone that has no idea what storytelling or logic means. This whole plot point means it's so stupid. Like, okay, fine, whatever. We just gotta accept it, guys. Just accept it and move on. And that leads us to scene 3, Elrond and the dwarves. We can have some positives now, guys. We're out of the bad times, right? We're out of the Hardfoots in Numenor, where literally nothing's positive about any of the scenes that they're in. And we move on to, this is where, like, so I was in a real bad mood up to this point, because this is like the first, like, I think 10, 15 minutes, right? And I was just in a very bad mood. I'm like, it's going to be another just real bad episode, which it was. But we got some good things happening with Elrond and the dwarves, so we'll talk about that in a second. I'm going to go ahead and look back at chat. The show that you can change things from the books if the change is done for... This is my whole thing, Hugo, is that I was going into this show knowing they have to change things. There are certain things that just you have to change because of the time skip. That is acceptable. But when you change characters that are already pre-established, that they don't need to be changed, it serves you no point to change them. Celeborn, again, doesn't need to be changed. Galadriel doesn't need to be changed. Elendil, we'll talk about Elendil later on in this episode. Elendil basically becomes an elf hater by the end of this episode, which, okay, it's a good and a bad thing, because one, it makes sense why Elendil would not like Galadriel, but at the same time, doesn't fit his character. In the actual lore and who Elendil is as a character, doesn't fit him as a character. But in the show logic, it makes sense. So it's a weird imbalance there, but I don't know. In the old cartoon Fellowship, they had Legolas say, oh, I actually remember that. Now that you're saying that, I remember that. Yeah, they didn't even, yeah, this is my other thing, Jesse. There's no logic. There's no repercussions or anything that happens. Yeah, Galadriel will definitely be a soldier in the War of the Last Alliance. It's going to happen. Like, there's going to be one, like, little duel type thing. It's going to happen. We know it's going to happen. Yeah, literally, Galadriel is not, like, the biggest player in the Second Age. I thought the hobbits would at least meet... Whoa, Jesse. They're not hobbits. They're Harfoot. They're different. Oh, God. Oh, I can't. Yeah. Okay, Hugo, they are not going to tell us what the stranger's identity is for a long-ass time. They will not answer questions on who characters are, because it's the only thing that has any intrigue in the entire show. Yeah, Hugo, that's what I meant. Like, I meant like she is involved, but she's not as like big of a player as like other characters, right? Like a Gil-galad, a Celebrimbor, some of these other characters that are a lot more major. If they did an actual film or series on the war, it'd be pretty cool if they did Galadriel as a commander type character, not necessarily a warrior, just stay behind the lines advisor. Yeah. Maybe a Tywin type figure, Matthew, because Tywin was never like a big like warrior guy, but he was someone that would sit, he would watch the battlefield unfold and make adjustments. If no one told me Galadriel's name, I would assume I agree. I would assume she's the antagonist as well. All right, so scene 3, we start out with Elrond kind of begging King Duran to help them with the mithril, to save their people, whatever. Again, it's a stupid plot. It's a stupid plot, like, as in, like, the overarching plot of getting mithril to save the elves by putting it on a tree or some bullshit. But where it goes, as in, like, character motivations, character development, dialogue, is pretty good. I thought in this scene, the dialogue was pretty solid. Again, this is one of the few times I didn't have any problems with the dialogue. I thought the music and the set design was also pretty good. I thought that was pretty fine here, and all of that. So then we kind of have King Duran's just like, okay, you leave us for now. Me and my son are gonna talk, my boy, and they're kind of like, okay, we're not doing this. Well, King Duran's like, we're not doing this, basically. And what I like here is something that makes a lot of sense is that King Duran kind of uses the logic that the elves are really just trying to cheat death. And if you're going to go this route with the elves and them dying off or whatever, this is sound logic for the dwarves. Because in reality, that's exactly what's happening. As a dwarf, right, you don't get to live forever as a dwarf. You die, you have your life, you die. So it makes a lot of sense. It's the same kind of logic that's kind of used with, like, the Numenor men that they really have not, talked about in Numenor. But it's kind of the same idea. So I'm okay with the dwarves kind of taking on that mindset. And it makes sense given the situation. But the other thing that I mentioned here that didn't make a lot of sense to me is, with all that being said, right, it makes sense for them not to want to give the mithril to the elves. But at the same time, you cannot tell me the dwarves who find mithril would not want to mine it. It is the most rare and useful substance that only you control at this point, besides, like, apparently Numenor had some as well. So, but for show like lore or plot, they're the only ones that control this metal or whatever. There's no way, if that was found, the dwarves would just be like, nah, we're not gonna do that. Like, sorry. It would have happened one way or another. The stranger is a Balrog or a wizard. I'm beyond caring at this point. I just don't care, Jesse. Either way, it breaks lore. I just don't care. It's just majorly bullshit. What happened to Adar? I like that dude. Dude, Adar should have been dead. Alongside of everybody else, he should have been dead. Also, his plan really doesn't make any sense. When you look at the context of, oh, the volcano is going to explode and kill everyone. That includes the orcs. So, I don't know. Doesn't make any sense. What if Craig Stark got his way? He wanted to strip all the Greens of their lands and titles. Who would the Blacks awarded these seats to? Probably, he either would have given it the Northmen, like Jesse suggests, or he would have just given it to Black loyalists, basically. I wonder how mithril will matter to the plot. As I said before, only one out of the 12 rings is made of mithril. So, Hugo, this is how I think is they're going to do it. I'm assuming they're just going to make all of the rings out of mithril. Or at least the elven rings, I think, will be made out of mithril. Also, Jesse, I have no idea. The fact that your big shadow thing or whatever, and all of this, this chaos on this sword is actually just a dam is broken open is very stupid. Oh, don't even get me started about Nikki about that. I saw that earlier. so much patently evil. I can feel the patently evil coursing through my veins. It makes me stronger. It gives me focus. Yeah. If you guys don't know, there was an article basically calling, I guess, the book fans, patently evil. So take that as you will. Oh, I know the One Ring itself is made out of gold. But Hugo, I think they're going to say that, oh, the reason the elves live on is because of these 3 rings they make for the rings of power. And they're going to be like, oh, well, since we're making these, we can make these other ones for the dwarves and all these. That's the way I think they're going with that. It's not good, but I think that's where they're going with it. And then I kind of wrapped up the kind of Duran like talk, basically saying I don't have any huge complaints here. I thought the overarching plot is not great, but the dialogue is much better in these scenes than compared to any of the other storylines. Character building's better, the acting's better. Really, it just feels like there is someone else working on the scenes with Elrond and the dwarves than anyone else. So, Jesse, I know the Numenorians it might not have been on Numenor, but I know that there is mithril somewhere else than the Mines of Moria, or what, Khazad-dûm, whatever. Because I researched this before. Hold on, give me a second. I know that there is a rumor that it was somewhere else as well. It was also found on the island of Numenor and probably in Aman as well. So yes, that is coming from the Tolkien Gateway. So take that as you will. Are you guys sure there was only... Okay, because I'm getting mixed reports. I've been told that there was other places. Let me double check. Okay, so maybe it was just Moria? I don't know. I'm getting conflicting reports on that. I don't know. I don't know, guys, because I look on one website, it tells me that there was, and another website tells me, basically just mentions Khazad-dûm. So, I don't know. I don't know about that one, actually. That could be either way, but... I kind of agree, Jesse, at the same point. Erebor, I don't think had mithril, Nikki. I think they got mithril from Moria, but... Okay, so Tolkien Gateway is good then? Okay. What if Jason Varamax both survived the Battle of the Gullet? Probably a lot, because a lot of what goes on with Rhaenyra is her inaction. So, probably a lot would have actually changed. Also, at the time, Jace was really taking control of the Blacks at that point. So, yeah, a lot would have changed if that had happened. Hi, Thoughts Upon a Time. How are you? All right, so let's get back into the plot. So, Disa is then pissed, says they should plot against Duran to try to mine themselves, which I'm like, I get it. They're trying to help Elrond. They've done a good job of establishing the relationship. But, I don't know. Like, how would you even go about mining the mithril by yourself? Like, it's not like you're going to some other part. Like, you all live together in one mine, more or less. Like, I don't know. I don't even know how you... And then they do it later on, which we'll talk about. But, and this is a really great idea. Because Duran, they could have just wrote this as Duran just like, no, it's what my father says. Duran, says, I can't oppose my father and my king. What does that tell my own children? Like, how does that make them... Or how does that make me look in their eyes, right? That's basically teaching them that, you can not respect the king. You can go behind the back of the king and or your father. it's a very bad lesson to be teaching to your children. And I really liked that. I thought that was a very good, see, this is what I'm saying is sometimes they sprinkle in very good dialogue and very good philosophies, but then other times you go back to the Galadriel plot and I don't know what the fuck's going on. Like, so yeah. We also have, so the next part I want to talk about, and this is something that was one of my big positives about the entire episode, is that we have very much a House of the Dragon type shot where we have Duran, or Prince Duran, and Elrond, and nothing is said. Nothing is said. And you can tell the pain on both of their faces and the sadness without anything being said. The visual face acting is fantastic between the two. The music was good at this scene. This is one of the very rare great scenes because not only has this been built up to from previous episodes, this episode, it kind of is paid off. Something that the show very much lacks. It does not build things up for the big payoffs. It just pays off with nothing building to it. But yeah. Also, the Arkenstone, I do not think it was a Cimmeral. But there are people that, that argue it. Maybe they will make, or let me go back. Jesse said, I know the Numenorians had some mithril artifacts, but I thought they traded with the dwarves for it. I'm not sure, Jesse. I'm going off of, there's like, if you go to I think it was the Lord of the Rings wiki, they make no mention of Numenor having mithril. So, I don't know. I don't know. It's up there in the air. The show should have been about Moria only. I would have loved that. I really would have loved that. Moria, I've always said this when I was a little kid. I always loved Moria. I found it so intriguing. And I'm talking about like during the events of Lord of the Rings and the past and history there. I think it is one of the most interesting places in all of Middle-earth. So that's my thoughts on that. Eric, to find the light, you must touch the darkness. A stone sinks because it looks downward. Yes. I think I would rather drown. But yeah. So, moving on. Again, I talked about in my notes that the fading overall plot for the elves, it's dumb, but it's being used in a way that's building characters, which is great. So, we have a little bit of a conversation between Prince Duran and Elrond, talking about how this is going to be their last time and saying goodbye and all these things, and very good acting. Very good acting. You can definitely tell these are two of the best actors in the show. They finally get something to do. I feel like there are so many, like Elendil, I think his actor does a very good job with the very little that he is actually given. And they finally give some of our characters a lot to work with and to use their emotions and give us some great performances. So I really appreciated scene 3 for that part of it. And then the scene kind of wraps up with Elrond gives the mithril back, so a little mithril like chip thing, to Prince Duran. And Prince Duran kind of throws it because he's pissed off about the mithril. And it goes next to this leaf and it instantly starts healing it. Again, stupid. But I don't know. It's just, I don't know. Jesse, I checked Unfinished Tales and it's confusing. Gladdenfield's note 31 says that there was mithril in Numenor, but in Fellowship, Gandalf says it was only found in Moria. See, that's my thing is like, there's so many things in Tolkien lore that is contradicting, and that's like one of them. But I don't know. What do you think about the nameless things who inhabit Moria? Dude, I would love if they did a spin-off of that. Like, just going into, like, Moria. I do think that there are a lot of, like, things that are older than, like, almost the world itself that is probably deep buried underneath it. Like, you have the... What do you call it? What's the tentacle thing called? I always forget what it's called. The Watcher, basically. Really cool. I wish we knew more backstory of the Watcher, because we don't really know a ton about the Watcher. It's one of those things where it's like kind of like the Balrog, where it comes deep it's deep under the mountain and it kind of like comes up into the lake or whatever. Yeah, I don't know. I think it'd be really cool if we learned more about like Moria and all that. That's actually sick. What game is that, Hugo? I mean, here's the thing. I don't particularly like. I don't really like any of the plots, to be clearly honest. But out of all of them, Elrond and the dwarves are the best part. They have the best actors. They have the best logic for the most part. They don't make me want to hate myself for watching the show. Yeah, it's just I don't know. That could make sense, Matthew, about Moria. That could be very possible, Hugo, about what the nameless creatures are, or the things are. All right, so on to scene 4. We're back to our favorite characters, and I made a note of this, right? This is my note. They quite literally put together two of the worst characters in the entire show, Galadriel and Theo. Like, could you imagine, like, hey, let's have, like, an episode where we put, like, two of the characters that everybody either hates or doesn't give a shit about together. That sounds fun. Let's do it, guys. But I don't know. So they talk about how, you know, they're going to try to retake their homelands, the Southlands or whatever. And this is mentioned that they don't have the men or position to retake the land. And that apparently the enemy being strong, like, for one, we have not seen any type of orc army after they've been put in prison. 2, what do you mean you don't have the men? They show us later in the fucking episode that they have a sizable army still. And by sizable, I mean out of their 300 they thought they could beat Sauron with, at least 200 of them are still alive. What do you mean you've lost your position? I just, what enemy? You had all the orcs in prison, presumably tied up. Adar was tied up in a building. What enemy? What? What? I don't understand. I don't know. I just don't understand. Let's continue. And then we have this thing where Galadriel's like admitting it was her fault and all these things. And I'm like, it's kind of your fault, Galadriel, but it's more of the bad writing's fault. I blame the directors, not you, or the writers, not the directors, the writers. Because all Galadriel did was she was trying to get the Numenorian forces to help against Sauron, which, you know, if you look at it from a general point of view, that's a good thing. It's more of none of you idiots checked the sword, that it was the actual sword. None of you could tell that it was like a axe or a hammer thing. It's not your fault, Galadriel, that everyone in this show is stupid. So I was like, yeah, whatever. I mean, you know, Galadriel taking some accountability, fine. All right, cool. Let's move on. They show the Numenorians with the Lendil, and again, my thoughts are, how are so many of these people alive? Apparently, they're just alive. I don't know. They're leaving the land because, again, I mean, you can't really live on a land that's been kind of volcano, you know, destroyed. You can't really plant any crops or anything like that. It's just what happens, you know? So you got to leave the land. They're going to go find better land. Whatever. Fine. I saw some normie talking about Disa being Sauron. He was... What? How would that even work? But even Sauron knows them not. Yeah, I mean, Sauron is not aware of them. It's been billions of... Yeah. I mean, Sauron didn't know everything when it came to Melkor stuff anyway, to be completely fair. Easy, Eric. Let's calm down. Your face is starting to turn green. Don't become the grease. This show gives me literally just... It makes me mad. This show makes me mad. Okay? Okay. Why give him another damn sword? He just lost the last one he had. Like... Yeah. And also Galadriel's arming kids. Like, this is a good message. It's a good message. I mean... You know, Galadriel, this isn't really your kid. It's not really your decision on whether they should become a soldier or not, but fine. Yep, fine. Fine. Whatever. But my next question is, they're going to go on this voyage, right, to go back to Numenor, or they're trying to leave. What rations do they have to feed these people? I know this is very, kind of a nitpick, but logically, they should all be starving to death and die because they shouldn't have a food supply anymore. They also have to sail all the way across, like, the ocean, more or less. So, how's that going to work? But we don't have that question answered either. Fine. I mean, logic, again, doesn't apply here. So, whatever. Elendil asks where Isildur is, and I will say, Elendil does some great acting of losing a child and how your emotions would go with that. So, honestly, I thought that was another minor positive. Elendil does a good performance. But yeah. Oh, okay, so then there's another thing that's mentioned here. Now, while we're in pretty light, like it's pretty light out right now, like on this shot, right, with Galadriel and Theo. Galadriel goes, well, the orcs, they're gonna move in daylight now. And I'm like, what? It's not even nighttime out. You're telling me there's no sun, but you're this lit up? Are you telling me, like, the sky is just orange now? Like, what? I don't know. Like, it would make sense if they did, like, a whole House of the Dragon filming where you couldn't see anything. Then I'd be like, okay, yeah, there ain't no sun. There is clearly sun. But whatever, the orcs can move in daylight now, which, you know, I mean, that was more like Sauron's power and stuff like that and all that, but fine, whatever. I just don't care at this point about things like that. I mean, it's to be expected. So Galadriel, so there's this scene where Theo's like, wow, you must have killed countless orcs, Galadriel. And Galadriel's like, how dare you? How dare you? That is offensive. It's not good to kill orcs. Let's have a flashback in our minds to when Galadriel was doing her really cringy training sequence with the Numenorians, telling them how to kill orcs and how she's so good at killing orcs and all these things. Let's rewind to last episode when she said she was going to genocide the orcs and then kill Adar last. I guess they just forgot that plot point. I know more of their own story than they do. Or do they know it and just not care? Whatever. It's fine. Again, we gotta stop thinking. Stop thinking, guys. We must be blind. We must be blind to the story. We gotta be like Muriel. We can't see nothing. Honestly, just turn your ears off and just say it's good. I don't know. I will say it was enjoyable seeing the homeless hobbits become even more homeless. I liked watching their homes get burned. I liked that. That was one of the highlights of the episode. They probably brought enough rations for... No, Jesse. This is what I'm saying. How do they still have rations? Like, I would assume they brought these rations with them to the town, correct? The town got burnt to a crisp. There ain't no rations left. Unless they were keeping them on the boats or they had a second camp already set up. I'm not sure. Oh yeah, I hope the show fails. I genuinely... They're already filming season 2, which... There ain't gonna be a season 3. Let's just put it that way. Yeah, Elendil's a highlight of the show. I really like the actor. He's pretty good. I hope he gets to be in it. Yeah, he does a very good job. I will give him credit. He's one of the like 3 best actors, I think. Why are we watching and talking about this show? I canceled my. We're talking about it because I want to bring awareness to people that this show is bad. Like there are some people out there that think this show is good or okay, and a lot of that has been brought upon because there are a lot of Lord of the Rings YouTubers that defend this show for some unknown reason. Maybe they're getting paid by them. Maybe they don't want to believe that the show is as bad as it is. I don't know. But I want to talk about these things that are just logically like, and there won't be as I will not be reviewing the season 2 of this. I will not be. The amount of time that goes into watching it and or making my notes on things that are bullshit throughout the episode, I don't enjoy watching the show. I genuinely hate the show. So I will not be watching it for a season 2. But I will finish season 1 because I want to see how bad it is. Okay, I can get behind that they left most of the rations at their camp. I can get behind that. Let's not forget that Gil-galad is one of the yeah. I can't believe the writers really have Galadriel talking about a temperance of anger. The show is unaware. Yes. This whole show, or not whole show, this whole episode is kind of about how Galadriel's like telling Theo, oh, don't do this, don't do that, don't be all this. And it just comes off as so hollow. Agreed, Hugo, agreed. Because, yeah, I don't know, like, every Lord of the Rings YouTuber I respect and watch constantly, or not constantly, but I watch them occasionally, and I, like, watch some of the reviews of it. None of them are watching season 2, so I don't know who's going to be watching season 2. I don't know who's going to be watching it, but whatever. So, this then moves us to, oh yeah, so I will say at least they got kind of the atmosphere kind of right of a lot of the characters don't look clean and all that stuff. They look dirty. They look like they've been through, a volcano type scenario. At least they got that right. The atmosphere is kind of right. I'll give them credit on that. I try to be fair on them on certain things where it's like they did these things right. Doesn't happen very often, but I tried. So I was just about to put down actually in my notes when we got to this that how does no one have any smoke inhaling problems? Like no one. And as soon as I was writing that down, Muriel now has the problem. So she is now blind. She has smoke in her lungs. She's like smelling smoke, even though they're not even in the area of the smoke. And I gave them a little bit of a credit here that at least there is some continuity that, smoke inhalation would be a major factor in something like this and would be the main source of damage to a person in this sort of situation. But whatever. So we move back to the Harfoots, and the main Harfoot leader dude tells a stranger to fuck off basically and go talk to the men, which fine, whatever. And immediately after, because of course, I mean, we just saw that the trees were like fixing itself and stuff, that the trees start to grow. Yeah, and all of the fruit starts to come back and all this stuff, and yeah. And then he leaves the Harfoot family, and it's supposed to be like this very special scene. There's like a really weird scene where it's like the stranger and Nori are looking at each other, and it's just like them staring at each other for like a good, like, I swear, like a minute and a half. And I'm just like, so this is the reason we can't get any development of why Numenor is? Because we need to have a minute and a half staring competitions about 2 characters we don't give a shit about? Makes sense. And then this is the scene that I genuinely was like, yeah, the Harfoots actually suck. Like, Nori is basically saying how much she hates her life, how she hates being a Harfoot. She's not special in any way. She's just kind of normal or whatever. And you would think, like, this is generic writing, right? Where you'd have the mother character be like, no, Nori, you are special. You are very kind-hearted. You are this, that, whatever. Nori's mother looks at her and goes, "It's time for you to go to bed." Like, what? Huh? A great way of having us sympathize with her mother. Great way of building any type of relationship or character between either one of these characters. Like, this is basic level writing. This is Disney Channel level of writing that they can't even achieve with two characters. I just was like, that scene happened, and I was just like, I was so shocked as to the way that resulted and how it played out that I was like, I had to literally pause the episode for a second. I was like, wow, we're at this level, huh? That's crazy. That's crazy. We should do a stream on how an actual second age show should be done. I would not do that stream because it would be kind of copying somebody else's idea. But hold on. I'm gonna look them up because I've said this before multiple times. I'm gonna look it up real quick. Okay, Tolkien Untangled. If you guys want to watch a video or a video series, about how Rings of Power should have been done properly, watch their videos. They are fantastic, and they do a great job of going through how that Rings of Power show should have been done, while also trying to fit in what they would have had the rights to as well. It's a really fantastic watch. It's titled "How the Rings of Power Should Have Been Written" on adapting the Second Age, season 1 and 2, and then he does one for 3 and 4 as well. It is fantastic. And basically the way he would have done it is because you have the Numenorian men having, they don't have elven lives, right? He would have done the first 2 seasons starting out with the elven plots, right? Kind of the stuff with the elves, with Celebrimbor and all that stuff, and kind of the forging of the rings and all that stuff, and focusing on that area of it. And then season 3 and 4 would have been more on Numenor, focusing on, how Numenor eventually splits, and then the actual fall of Numenor, and then the actual War of the Last Alliance would have been like the last season, more or less. So if you guys want to learn about that, I would watch those videos. I think they're very, very good. So let's move on. Not season 6. What scene are we on? Season 7. So we're back with Galadriel and Theo, and this is where the show actually pissed me off. I genuinely got pissed off. Like, so they're talking about Finrod's death, and because Theo asks her, "Have you lost anyone?" And yeah, and they could have stopped at Finrod's death. And they keep going, and they're like, "Oh yeah, Celeborn, he's either missing or he's dead." And I'm just like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, if you're not going to go with the lore, don't throw shit in our face that obviously contradicts anything that happened in the book. Like, just stop. Like, it just bothered me. And then, yeah, so let's just continue on. And Theo's like, "Oh, I blame myself for everything that happened." And I'm like, why? Theo didn't really do anything that wrong. He got the sword last, and he's the one that figures out that it wasn't the right thing. Yes, he does find the sword and carry it with him, but it's like someone would have found the sword at any point anyway. The old dude knew where the sword was. He was going to pick up the sword if the kid didn't steal it or whatever. So it's probably better that it was in his hands. It's not his fault. Everybody around him's incompetent. Well, he's incompetent as well, but But yeah. Here in Brazil, one of the biggest pop culture channels to stop making. Yeah, I think most people have stopped making reviews on it. I know. What's it called? It's like Angry Reviews or whatever. They do reviews on like video games, everything. I'm pretty sure they stopped, which kind of tells you a lot. I've heard most YouTubers I respect and watch that talk about the Lord of the Rings stuff said they're going to stop after the end of the season. So that's kind of where I am. I don't think I will make content on Rings of Power in the future. And if I do, it'll be talking about how badly the show butchered Tolkien's writing. And that'll be more of a video. It won't be a stream. But I agree with you guys and your thoughts on kind of the lore type stuff. That would be really cool if Sauron was the main character. We got it through his eyes and his point of view. That'd be really cool. I'd actually like that. I'm also a major, like, I kind of like a lot of the villains in Lord of the Rings. Like, I really like the Witch King. I like the Balrog. I like Sauron. I like the Nazgul. I don't know. I just like the villains. I don't know. Okay. So, there's a decent dialogue scene for once between Galadriel that Galadriel's kind of telling Theo, you know, kind of don't be like her, saying that regret and beating yourself up is something that is hard to give up, which is something that she basically struggles with, which I thought was good. It made sense from Galadriel's character point of view and all that, so I thought that was fine. And then they also were basically saying that, you know, they did a subtle callback to the Gandalf and Frodo conversation when Frodo's like, I wish none of this had happened. I wish the ring had never come to me. And there's kind of this whole idea where Galadriel's like, you know, things kind of just happen for a reason, right? And there's another, you know, power at work here. It's kind of a callback to that scene. It's not done as well, but it was decent dialogue because, again, ripped from something else that was much better. Orcs appear, a big band of orcs appear. Not sure how they're alive. Not sure if they were in prison and they broke out or they were just hiding for some reason. I don't know. The orcs don't find them. They're hiding under a tree, which I was like, okay, makes sense. It's dark. They're under a tree. Whatever. And then we cut back to the dwarves. And I kind of have some problems here with the dwarves at this point because Duran, by himself, starts mining. Okay? And this makes Khazad-dûm feel so empty to me because how is Duran getting to the biggest mining thing that should have multiple guards on it? It's very big that they don't go mining and break the entire mountain because that's kind of what Duran's been alluding to. It bothers me that Duran just waltzes in here, nobody says anything, and he just starts mining. Now, I'm not sure if it was because Duran was hitting the mountain, you could feel the vibrations and all that stuff, that, okay, something was obviously going on in the mountain, that King Duran was like, yeah, he's definitely doing it again. Or maybe there were guards, people that saw them go in and they told the king, because eventually King Duran does find out. But before that, there is a very decent scene between Elrond and Duran, again, continuing their relationship and building their relationship, which is good, but it doesn't really progress the plot all that much. So it's a weird scene where it's like, it develops characters, but again, we're in episode 7. We should be progressing the plot to kind of our climax of this plot line, and we really aren't getting there. So, yeah. And then we skip Duran mining again, and he finds basically the mithril motherlode. Like, it's all over the walls and stuff like that. It's pretty much everywhere, right? And what kind of bothers me here is that we'll talk about it at the end of the episode. So I won't mention it yet, but basically the Balrog is like a little underneath where he kind of does this little mining thing and sees all the mithril. And it doesn't make any sense, really, because if you think about it, they haven't even started finding the mithril yet. And as soon as they hit that mithril, it's literally like right above the Balrog. How is it not going to wake it up instantly? There's one of those things where it's like they were mining too deep because they were getting deeper and deeper trying to find more mithril. So it kind of contradicts itself a little, but whatever. So then King Duran pops up, and I thought this was fair play. We don't see a lot of logic in this show, but finally they're like, yeah, Elrond, you need to get your ass out. Like, you're wandering around Khazad-dûm too much. You're just creating problems. You gotta leave. And one of the better episodes of the entire, or one of the best scenes of the episode, or the episode in general, is between King Duran and Duran. So King Duran, Prince Duran. And there's really great character building and good tension that felt paid off. So what I mean by good tension that felt paid off, I mean like Helm's Deep, right? So Helm's Deep, or Two Towers specifically, I'm talking about the movie specifically because the books are a bit different on the way things happen, and it's kind of like we get one part of the story and then we get Frodo and Sam's part of the story. But we get this idea here on Helm's Deep part of it is that there's a building up. There's a build up. The tension is rising and building. The music is slowly, and the weather is getting slowly building up towards this big battle, right? So there's a lot of built up tension that feels earned. This has been building with the tension between Duran and his father since earlier episodes. We've kind of felt the unease and the disconnect between the two, and how Duran has always felt like his father's held him back. And this really comes out in this scene, and it basically kind of comes with that Prince Duran kind of gets disowned, basically, kind of feels like. But it was a really great scene, great acting, great dialogue for the most part. I really thought this was a good scene. And this is what bothers me, is it feels like there's somebody else working on the Elrond dwarf scenes than the rest of the show. Because there's a massive drop in quality whenever we go to any of the other plot lines. I don't know if that's because of lack of story, the actors are worse. I don't know what it is that is causing that problem. Getting into... Actually, before we get into scene 9, I'm going to go to the bathroom real quick. I have a very small bladder and water goes through me, so I will be right back, guys. Okay, so we get into scene 9, and this is where I guess it all goes to hell. I don't know, but scene 9 pops up. The tree fruit spell is back. It's worked. There's all these things around. All the Harfoots are happy. They're getting all their stuff, and it would appear that the Morgoth / Sauron priests have found the Harfoots. And they're kind of like walking around, kind of tracking where the stranger went and all this other stuff. And they randomly point a direction. And now they know where the stranger is or something. But then Nori, for some ungodly reason, Nori hops out and is like, nah, he actually went that way. Like, what? Are you stupid? And then Nori looks at them, right? And they do some, like, this is literally how I wrote this down in my notes. The priests just vanish. What in the Harry Potter bullshit? That is how I felt about it. I'm like, they just pop up behind her and they're trying to, like, grasp her like a horror movie or something. I'm just like, what is going on? I thought this was like Lord of the Rings. Like, what is going on? And then Nori's father comes up and she's like, back away or I'll kill a bitch or something. And the dude just takes the fire out of the thing and then, like, Yoda force pushes the fire and burns down the Harfoot's, like, campsite. I don't know if I'm supposed to care that the Harfoots are getting their shit burned. I'm like, you know what? This doesn't make any sense at all. But good for you, priest guys, or I don't even know. And I'm just like, burn them all. Like, go Mad King on them, bro. Just burn them all. Like, I'm tired of seeing these people on the screen. They waste my time. They do nothing to advance the plot. They have no relevance to the story. Like, just burn them. I don't know. The guy who plays Duran has charisma and shows passion for the role. He acts convincingly like a dwarf. That's why we agreed. He's one of the few characters that actually feels like he would be in this world. I think I just broke a Rings shrill on another channel. Proud of you, Nikki. Proud of you. I'll kill a bit. Yeah. And then I ended out this scene just typing, are they going to give us any information about the stranger, about these priests? Like, how are they doing what they're doing? And the answer to that question is no. So, yeah. Okay. So, let's move back into the men plot. And the horse is upset about Isildur. Elendil tries to calm it down. Again, great acting by Elendil. I just don't care about this horse like plot. It just, yeah, it was set up last episode, but it just kind of feels dumb. And I really like the way Elendil's actor acts in this episode, or in this episode, yes, and also in this scene. There's a really cool shot of the horse. Like, the landscape is really good as he's going back to presumably Isildur to somehow, I guess, break him out of the burned building that's been dropped on him. I don't know. And then this is what I think is hilarious, right? Is I was typing, I like that they show the horrors of war in the medical tent as Theo is like kind of walking through it trying to find Bronwyn. And then all of a sudden, it pans to Bronwyn. She's perfectly fine. She's alive, right? She had an open, guys, let's not forget, she had an open wound. An arrow went through her. She is walking around just fine. Has smoke inhalation. This, like, she should be in a very weak state, and she's fine. She's walking around. Nothing happened. Nothing is explained for how that happens. Whatever. Arondir's alive too. He joins the party. He's unarmed. Nothing has happened to him because, of course, it's just so contrived. It's so contrived. And we're going to talk about it when I get done with the scenes. But if you really look at what's happened from episode 1 to episode 7, pretty much nothing's happened. Galadriel and Muriel talk, and Elendil as well. And this is my big, like, I don't know how I feel about Elendil in this, because as I understand Elendil, like, wanting to leave Middle-earth and not liking the elves and all these ideas, and it fits the show logic of Elendil's character, but it's a very vast contradiction to who Elendil really is and his motivations as a character, right? I don't think he would upheave his entire, loyalist type, thing, where he would be loyal to, the elves, to the Valar, things like that, because of his son's death. I just don't see that as how his character would go, but it's just really tough to me. It's a tough plot point because they put themselves in that situation. Muriel is committed to the fight. She basically says, I will be back. And I'm just like, why? Why is Muriel coming back? And Galadriel trusts that somehow the blind cripple is going to be able to keep control of Numenor and bring them back. It's very contrived. Very contrived. I don't know. And then Elendil, we have, again, great face acting. That's pretty much the only positive I can ever say about the men is Elendil. Everybody else is just shit. So, yeah. It looks like they were going for a Mockingjay thing in this scene. Yes, agree. That is what it kind of felt like. Season 1 Rings of Power. No Rings of Power and no Sauron yet. Should have had a different name for the... Yes. Guys, let's think of a name. Let's think of a name for Rings of Power. What it should have actually been named. It should have been named... The Stupid Man and the Strong Female Characters. There you go. There you go. That's how you name it. That's how you name the entire episode. So we go back to the Harfoots, right? And we get no information why the priests wanted to kill them. Like, we get nothing. And this is the thing here, is they're trying to do this, like, really rallying speech, okay? Or Nori's father is. And I'm just in here like, why do I care about the Harfoots? They've shown me nothing except they are heartless dicks who just don't care about anybody. Why should I root for them? And Nori's father then utters this. He basically goes, Harfoots stay true to each other. What? What? What are you talking about? When have they stayed true? We've literally seen scenes of them trying to abandon each other. But that's not even the worst. We'll get even further. So the speech is just bad, in my opinion. It's just bad. It's how this is not riling up anybody. And then Frodo and Samwise decide to leave the Shire to go warn Meteor Man. Okay, and so Nori's friend utters the line, and I quote, "We've left too many people behind. We ain't leaving him." Let's rewind here. Rewind back to Nori's dad's speech. Harfoots stay true to each other. They've contradicted each other in the span of less than 2 minutes. I swear, this stuff was written by a 2-year-old. I don't know. So then the entire tribe decides, yeah, we're just going to go help find Meteor Man, I guess. Now, let's also point out here that the Meteor Man is the reason the priest came to them and burned all their shit down. But again, we have no logical rationale for many characters because these aren't real characters. They don't have human, like, emotions or concerns, and they are just plainly stupid. So, yeah. So the tribe's moving out, and guess what? They're doing what they've been doing for 6 goddamn episodes. They're moving again. Wow. Wow. I gotta take a little deep breath. I gotta breathe a little bit. Okay, I'm really struggling. Okay, so The Lord of the Rings, Galadriel's Vacation. I like that, Hugo. Stand through the hour. Yes, that's a good. The Lord of the Rings, The Search for Sauron. This should have crossed the event horizon of cringe, and now it's kind of enjoyable. A little. The Lord of the Rings, The Voyage Home. That's a good one. Okay, so after that, we go back to Muriel and the elves and everything going on with the men, and they're sailing back. Whatever. Don't care. And Arondir decides, hey, we can get a fresh start near the Anduin River. And I'm sitting here going, why didn't you do that when the orcs were attacking you 4 episodes ago? Like, I get it. Now your home is like a volcano thing, so now you kind of have to. But you were threatened of death. Your land is now orc infested, and now you think it's a good idea to have a fresh start? Okay, go away. Just go away. And then Galadriel decides, yeah, I'm going to go to Lindon. I got to tell Gil-galad what's up and stuff. And it's like, apparently Gil-galad already knows, and he doesn't really care about you, Galadriel. So we'll see how that goes. And then we have this whole reveal that Halbrand is near death. Like, he's got a big gash. He looks pale. He's struggling, right? And Galadriel's like, can he ride? And I kid you not, he has this giant gash down his stomach. He gets up and just walks out. No one's holding him up. He just walks out of the tent and is riding a horse. How are you supposed to build tension or take this show even a little serious, when a character gets severely injured, everybody's like, oh, he's not doing so good. He needs elf medicine. And then he stands up on his own accord, walks out, and rides a horse. Do you know how you do that properly? Let's take a look at, another Lord of the Rings injury that happened. Remember when the Witch King stabs Frodo and he literally can't really walk anymore? He's struggling to stay on a horse. He is slowly becoming a wraith. That's how you build tension and suspense and show that things have consequences. Not whatever the fuck happened to Halbrand was. Like, I don't... Now we're going to figure out that Halbrand is Sauron, most likely, because he's going to Lindon. Probably going to meet Celebrimbor, and then he's going to start his little manipulating. Or I don't know. I don't care at this point. I don't know. I don't see where the Harfoot plot is going either. I don't know where it's going. I don't care. I don't know. The Rings of Power. Vote for Sauron. I vote for Sauron every time. Episodes spent battling over that stupid tower and village, and we all know how the plot line was going to end. What a waste of time. Agreed. It was stupid. It was a stupid plot. And then, so, they ride off into the sunset, and I'm just like, whatever. Bad show. Like, just terrible writing. And then we kind of finish out with Duran. Hold on. Oh, okay, so King Duran comes to kind of go to the hole that, like, you know, Prince Duran had uncovered and seeing all the mithril. And he throws a leaf down there, okay? And this leaf goes through the little area where the mithril is, goes down a hole directly to the Balrog. The Balrog awakens. A leaf. A fucking leaf awakens Duran's Bane. So, you know how we had the whole plot of the dwarves being too greedy, they delved too deep? Nope. They awakened Duran's Bane because of a fucking leaf. And how are you going to tell me they're going to mine any mithril? Because now the Balrog is awakened. It's not in hibernation no more. It felt so out of place, so unearned, and just almost fan service, but no, a real fan wouldn't want to see the scene. So, I don't know. Whatever. And then the last scene, we go to Adar. We have no explanation of how he survived. We have no explanation of how these orcs survived. And this orc goes, or not orc, sorry. The one old dude that I don't care about goes to Adar's like, what shall we name it? And I'm just sitting here like... And then he doesn't even utter it. It's just, oh yeah, there's text on the screen now that says Mordor. And I'm just like, fuck you. Honestly, fuck you. Just, like, you couldn't have ended the episode worse. Like genuinely. And that is the last scene. So, let's get into my summary of the episode, of the series as a whole. Before I get into it, I want to talk about one thing. If you look at what happened at episode 1, what was the current state of the world to what has happened at the end of episode 7, let's see what happened. The Harfoots were migrating to a place, and they find the stranger. At the end of season 7 of that plot line, they are still basically migrating, and they're looking for the stranger. That's quite literally what's happened throughout the entire season. The Numenor Plot. Galadriel is searching for Sauron, and she ends up in Numenor, and the Numenorians come to Middle-earth, and by the end of episode 7, the Numenorians are going back to Numenor, so they're basically where they were at the beginning of the series, and Galadriel is searching for Sauron. If we look at Arondir's plot, he was with this woman he liked, and their town basically got destroyed. Oh, look, they're just going to go live in another town. The only thing that happened, and it was all contrived to get Mordor to become Mordor. Nothing happened. The only thing that kind of happened is the dwarves discovered Mithril, but by the end of episode 7, they don't want the Mithril. So, like, when you really look at what has happened in this series, nothing has happened. Like, nothing has happened outside of, oh, the Southlands are now Mordor. Also, it's pretty obvious that the Southlands is Mordor. Like it's pretty obvious. Even casual viewers would probably know that. Okay, so final review, final little paragraph for the stream, and we will get out of here. We have one more episode to do. We'll see where it goes. But yeah, so for this week's review, let's start with the positives. For the most part, the Elrond and dwarf scenes were the highlight of the episode, even though the overall main plot is dumb. There's still some logical fallacies in the scenes, but for the most part, it's fine. I'm willing to overlook them. They're better than the rest of the show. For me, it's really the only plot I enjoy at times, right? Other positives of the episode is they gave some of the better actors a chance to show how good of actors they are with brilliant face acting from Elendil, Elrond, and Duran. Also, King Duran. I will say that the music was okay in this episode. It wasn't great, wasn't bad. It was just mediocre. And that concludes the good section, or the okay section. Now for the bad section. The dialogue continues to be terrible and contradicting of itself, especially in the Harfoot plot, like how I talked about with the Harfoot saying they're true to each other, but then literally 2 seconds later saying they abandon people literally all the time. The overall story feels unstructured and has no real focus. As I've talked about in the series of streams, there's not really any focus. We don't know where we're going with the story. There's just nothing there. This whole season has felt like trying to just get Mount Doom to become a thing, which is whatever. And talking about the Harfoot plot, it's completely irrelevant to the actual plot. We get zero new information. Nothing has been told to us for the past 5 episodes. We don't know any relevance to why they're in the plot, why they're in the show, who the stranger is. We just have no idea. Moving to the Numenor plot, the entire plot is so contrived. On that fact that everyone should be dead, or the only character, or that all the characters should basically be dead. Nobody faces any repercussions or consequences. So if you look at, like, Robb Stark, for instance, makes a lot of bad decisions. He ends up dying for it. Ned makes, mistakes, dies. There's none of that within this show. There's no repercussions to anything that really happens. And I know Lord of the Rings is not the same as Game of Thrones, but it's just basic writing that your decisions have consequences, and that's just not apparent in this show, except for Muriel. She's the only character that has anything bad happen to her. Alongside of that, there's just many logical fallacies, like Adar. How is he alive? How did he escape being held captive in basically a barn while it was on fire? Not sure. Also, the amount of times they just break the lore in this episode is insulting to the book readers and to Tolkien himself. Let's just hit the main ones in the summary. Durin's Bane is awoken by a leaf. Celeborn is dead, apparently, or missing, and Elendil hates elves now. For me, this episode wasn't as bad as last week, just based on the fact that nothing really happens in this episode that pissed me off as much as last episode. With that, I mean, like, it still pisses me off, but not as much as the just apparent logical fallacies in the last episode that are just so apparent in that episode, and a lot of things I talked about at the beginning of the stream. Moving on, for hold on. Where was that? Don't get me wrong, I was still angry watching them butcher Tolkien's writing, but it wasn't as bad as last episode, in my opinion. For this episode, I think I would give it a 4, a slight upgrade from last week's episode of a 3. I want to conclude with stating that whoever's writing this garbage should be fired. Not only are they contradicting Tolkien's writings and themes at every turn and ignoring his well-established characters, they are worse at writing a logical story than David and Dan from Game of Thrones. At least we can give them credit for being able to adapt the books early on the seasons. These writers can't even adapt material to any degree. The story they are telling has nothing to do with the events of the Second Age, and the overall story is trying to keep every character a secret, except at this point no one cares anymore. But yeah, if the dwarves don't want the mithril, who the hell forges Bilbo's mail? They will at some point, I would assume, but I don't know. They should have just showed Mount Doom erupting and then called it. This entire season show has been... Yeah, agreed. I agree, Nikki. I agree. It's like they fired their writing staff between each episode. I agree, Jesse. I agree. I just don't understand. I don't understand where this show is going. What is the plot about? Like, I don't know. It's bad. For something that they spent apparently billions of dollars on, or $1 billion on, it is the biggest flop of all time. Like, season 8 of Game of Thrones, as much as a letdown as it was able to let us down because we actually cared about the world. We cared about some of our characters. There was tension. Like, they actually built up tension and going into episode 3. They just didn't pay it off well. But at least there were things there. Like, there's nothing. Rings of Power is a lifeless, dead, like, no, I don't care about anything going on in the show. Outside of how poorly are they going to handle things. Or, I like Sauron or the Witch King. Are they going to introduce them? Like, it's just bad. But that is going to be the stream, guys. Thank you all for watching. It's going to be a rough one, but I'm excited for House of the Dragon. Also, guys, remember that House of the Dragon streams will be on Monday because you guys wanted more of the detailed streams like the Rings of Power where I go through every single scene individually. Those are going to be on Mondays now because they take longer to prepare. But yeah, so thank you guys all for watching. Hope you guys have been enjoying the content this week.